Well, I've suggested that we focus primarily on the origins of dyslexia, which was about decoding problems, problems of actually making sense of the words on the page, and that a term reading disability is a better one. Because reading ability actually focuses our attention back on the basic fundamental process, which is reading. And that we can identify that very, very swiftly using a simple reading test, that any professional can do that very easily. We don't need to have any understanding of the causes, the etiology. We don't need to worry about any underlying cognitive processes. We don't need to say it's, we found this element or that element and so therefore it exists. No, all we need to do is say, here's a person who struggles to learn to read. Let's call that a reading disability and let's measure that in 10 minutes. And once we've done that, then let's try and intervene in ways which we know on the basis of evidence give us the best chance of making progress. As far as all the other issues are concerned, yes, by all means, let's look at those, but let's not call those dyslexia. Well, you can't, but the problem, when we start looking at a clinical level, we can't work out whether or not an individual who we see in front of us has a biological or hereditary biologically based difficulty. It's impossible to do that. So that definition's all very well at some kind of abstract level, but it's no good for intervention or clinical use. Yeah, as far as clinical application is concerned, what we're getting people diagnosed dyslexic often who don't have that kind of particular problem. They have a whole bunch of other things that are problematic for them. And that's one of the problems. There's a disconnect between the world of academic research and the way that these things have been hijacked and used in clinical practice or in professional practice. There's no evidence, if you're talking about treatment for reading problems, there's no evidence that you do anything differently for an individual, whether they're bright or not bright, same thing. There's no evidence being found that bright kids need this kind of intervention to help them develop their reading, and less bright kids, also with reading difficulties, require a different program. In other words, as far as tackling the literacy problems directly, intelligence has got no relevance at all. A person's intellectual ability to make a decision as to whether or not this particular educational track is right for them or that particular educational track's right for them. The same thing in the school system, where you put someone in a higher set or a lower set. You might want to know their intellectual functioning as part of a whole range of other things. You could be very bright but actually not actually very motivated, so therefore you wouldn't do very well anyway. So you've got to look at all sorts of elements of performance. But that is not part of a diagnostic procedure to identify dyslexia, because the kind of things we're talking about with dyslexia operate across the full intellectual spectrum, and everyone knows that. So anyone who would argue that we should be identifying as dyslexic a subgroup of that population is wrong. So I don't like seeing kids embroiled in this, and some people have said that certain children get upset by these things because that's because adults are telling them the wrong thing. But other than that, no, I think the only way we're going to get any progress with this is actually to have some kind of debate. You've got to create a bit of a stir. If you don't create a stir, then no one really engages with the issues and you don't make any progress. So we've had to do that. And hopefully those who read the book will see it's very scientific and it's not making hyperbole and great claims or whatever. It's dealing with literature and trying to show step by step the problems of this term.